let's go back and speak to Mr. Dafamapo. In the meantime, let's say good morning to Dr. Kwame Asante and Dr. Kojo Asante. I'll come to you, or we will come to you. Let's say good morning. Hello?
Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, great to have you. Mr. Dafamapo, you started with your reaction. Can we hear it?
Yes, I've listened to the Deputy Attorney General carefully, and I think that he misses the point. What is he saying? You recall that the decision by the Electoral Commission to conduct registration in 2012 was based on agitation by the NP, and they demanded that the registration should be biometric. As soon as we did biometric, everybody said that we have come to full cycle and that there will be no more need for any registration to be conducted. The power of the Electoral Commission will now be to revise. Now, 2 years down the line, they decided to go to court and raise the issue of the fact that the register was bloated. The Supreme Court made pronouncement. So for the Deputy Attorney General to today claim that the Supreme Court didn't make pronouncements, it's neither here nor there. The Supreme Court was very clear that if any time the Electoral Commission decides to conduct fresh registration, the possession by a person of an existing voter's ID card that is seeks to discard is a prima facie evidence of citizenship. So why would the Electoral Commission now come to Parliament and say that a document that is good enough to determine citizenship in another process in the same country within the same period is not good enough to determine citizenship for the same process for Electoral Commission? And I speak specifically of the law underpinning the work that the NIA is presently conducting. So they keep shifting the goalposts. Their claim was that the only reason they want to discard the existing voters register is because they want to introduce facial recognition features, no longer biometric. So I don't get the point. The fact that we didn't use both existing voters' ID card before or in the previous elections in the 90s doesn't make it unlawful for it to be done now. Again, he makes the point that we are trying to introduce ill motives. He knows, as a lawyer, he knows that motive is gathered from conduct. So by the conduct of the NPP government in this matter and the conduct of the Electoral Commission so far, some of us are reading ill motive into whatever they are doing. So they should be able to accept that perspective from the minority in this matter.
Well, Mr. Dafamapo, the reality is that even the Supreme Court does recognize that the Electoral Commission, by the act that establishes them, has the right to undertake that based on discretion. And once the CI 126 become the integral document by which the Electoral Commission spells out how somebody qualifies to have his name onto a new voters register, for which points have already been advanced, then so be it. Now, all these you're saying are just added commentary.
Now, the point I am making is that the CI 126 only came to amend Regulation 1 of CI 91.
Very well.
Which regulation included the use of an existing voter's ID card. So they used CI 126 to take out the voter's ID card component of the primary source document. The Electoral Commission is relying entirely on CI 91. That is why we shouldn't lose sight of the exercise they are conducting. They are relying on CI 91. All that we have done is to use CI 126 to amend two sub-regulations. That is 1 of CI 91 and 32 of CI 91. 32 talks about the definition, the interpretation column that defines an identity card to include
Mr. Dafamapo, with all due respect, that is not lost on anybody. That the CI 126 is also coming in just to give better clarification as to who can make an entry into that register based on citizenship and which documents could be used to identify that person. And i.e., we have the national identification card, the passports, and any form of guarantee of 2 people doing it for 10 new prospective voters. And that clarity has been established. You indeed are a member of parliament, so you do know that.
I do know that, but I am making the point. The NDC has always been making the point. We went to court for this singular purpose. That why would you go to parliament to reduce the number of documents that a person can rely on to enable the person to get onto the register? When that document was constitutional just in December last year.
Mr. Nahomoko, let's engage your other colleagues who are with us. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, if you can hear me, where are we with this whole process towards election 2020 with this court decision yesterday?
Matter is settled now. Once the Supreme Court has pronounced on that, that's the end. We move on to do the registration, and we get people into the register with the hope that all those other names that we don't want at the end of the day would be expunged from the register so that we'll get a clean one. It is my hope and prayer that we will get a clean register so that this tango will not be repeated in the next election. We also know that as we are going about the registration, we have COVID around our necks. We want the Electoral Commission to be very careful to take care of that so that we don't go and register only to come home to die of COVID.
Dr. Kojo Asante, I remember you saying, I think, was it sometime in April, you were concerned about the timing of this whole process before the election itself, and you are looking at the Electoral Commission looking for more innovative ways to compile this register. Can you hear me, sir? Dr. Asante, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I was just reminding our viewers about your concern sometime back about the timing for the Electoral Commission to do its work towards election in December. And I was asking, with this case cleared now by the Supreme Court, are you still confident that the Electoral Commission can do its work effectively before December 7, with the time that we have left?
Yeah, good morning, and good morning to your viewers. I'm still concerned about the timing. I think the Electoral Commission has tried to address some of that by reducing the number of days that the registration team will be on the ground. If you recall, the initial estimation and what we have done in normal times was about 10 days at a time. Now that has been reduced to 6 days. There's some attempt to maybe add on to the registration kits so that, we would be able to, collect the data as quickly as possible. And of course, we are doing it for a shorter period, also within the context of COVID. And so we don't know how long the process will take. Now that we know protocols and other kinds of things. The estimation is that they want to 100 people at a time. The trials suggested an average of 85, but that's still pilots. And if you get in very populated urban areas where you may encounter different problems, we are yet to see. And then we also have to count in the rainy season, possible disruptions, and so on. So there's still a lot of unknown factors that would maybe shape the way the process goes. At least I know there's about 7 days that have been provided for a mop-up process. So there's still an issue of timing, because even if we are done with this process through August and definitely into September, then we are basically entering into nomination, and then, it goes on and on. So there's the challenge. But I want to suggest that, following the verdict, one of the issues that we have raised at CVD and also at CODEO was the issue of the guarantee system. I still maintain that we have not faced this situation ever in our history where there is a large majority of people who have to use a guarantee system. I know that the Electoral Commission has made the point, and the Deputy Attorney General has made the point, that in the limited voter registration exercise of 2019 and so on, the majority of people used the guarantee system. But I have to recall that these are first-time voters and therefore unlikely to maybe have any formal identification. They may have come to the registration center with their parents and so on. Now you are talking about a large number of Ghanaians based on the NIA data that has been provided. 11 million, a little over 11 million registered, about over 7 million with cards. There was about 3 million cards that they were trying to distribute before the registration exercise starts. So even if your conservative estimate, you still have about 8 million people who have to use the guarantee system, and that if the care is not taken in terms of the kind of education and protocols, and then the security that has to accompany that process, you are going to have in very competitive seats where MPs are also trying to gain an advantage, a lot of challenges with that guarantee system. So I think that if there's anything that the EC should be doing now, it's really laying out a very intense public education in these few days in the run-up to the registration exercise, laying out what exactly should happen around the guarantee system. I also would like to see the National Election Security Task Force. I know it has been activated at district, DISEC, and also at the regional level. The national has to come out, meet with the political party leaders around particularly the guarantee system, because they need to get the parties very much involved to make sure that that process is properly done in a peaceful manner so that it doesn't cause any problem. I would also like to add that one of the other things that should happen in the next couple of days is a clear communication on the movement plan, the clusters that are going to be used for the registration. I would have loved that, this would have been publicized in the graphic or state and other, the website of the Electoral Commission, region by region, so that people get a sense of which polling stations will be activated in the 5 phases that are to come. So there are a number of, very practical mitigating actions that can be taken to still ensure that the process is peaceful and is credible, by the time we start on the 30th of June.
Let me say thank you for your time and welcome to the conversation, Mr. Gary Nimakumafo. Just wanted to ask, not necessarily for your reaction to the court's ruling yesterday, but some people have said the EC and, for that matter, the Attorney General would have to be magnanimous, because there are still people who may not show up to register because of the times that we're in. Coronavirus is still with us. We're still recording increasing cases. And that's why there must be a consideration of the old voters register, even in the face of this ruling yesterday.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners and the panelists, distinguished panelists, which we have assembled them this morning. That will be an absurdity. That is an impossibility that in the face of a Supreme Court decision, Electoral Commission can run counter, to it and do whatever that it seeks to do. That is an impossibility. EC, by so doing, if it does that, by any way or imagination, will be in contempt of the court. And that will be a very serious matter. So it's not possible. Once the decision has been made, it brings finality to this whole dispute. It binds all courts below the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, High Court, all cases or any case pending, which is in respect of a similar matter, registration issue, EC's power to register citizens of the Republic, they all come to a halt in view of the decision of the Supreme Court yesterday. They can never use the existing voter ID card as one of the qualifying criteria to put anybody's name on the electoral roll. Let me be quick to add. I heard my learned friend, Dr. Mapo, saying that the Supreme Court is shifting positions because in the Abu Ramadan, it indicated that the voter ID card is prima facie evidence of citizenship. You see, that is correct. But you see, prima facie evidence does not mean that you are a citizen of the Republic. When the court says that voter ID card is prima facie evidence of citizenship, it doesn't mean that you are a citizen of the Republic. It means on the face of it, we can say that you are a Ghanaian. But if you are holding the card and somebody challenges you and you're not a Ghanaian, and they can prove you're not a Ghanaian, obviously you will be in breach of the law. Because we are in this country and we know that there are some people who are holding Ghanaian passports, but they are not Ghanaians. And they have been put to court and they go to prison. So the fact of holding Ghanaian passport does not make you a Ghanaian, strictly speaking. Citizenship is not by paper. And I've maintained this position from day one. It's not by paper. You are a Ghanaian citizen doesn't mean that you are holding Ghanaian passport, means that your paper means that you are a citizen of Ghana. No, it doesn't mean that. So even if you don't have anything at all, you don't have a passport, you don't have a national ID card, they are saying that you can present yourself before the registry officer, let somebody guarantee for you, and then put your name on the electoral roll. I do not see how EC can deliberately decide on its own to disenfranchise anybody in this instance. I don't see how it can be done. If they do it deliberately, that somebody comes there and is a Ghanaian, and then you say that you will not let the person register because they don't have anything, EC in itself will be in breach of the law.
Okay, well, point made there. Now let me go to Dr. Asah-Asante. There's now a leeway, the open way for the Electoral Commission to practically undertake this. Indeed, the guarantee system seems to be the only choice for people outside jurisdictions who don't have access to the two primary documents. How should one, comportment, cooperation of community people, and two, the main identifiable institutions within the jurisdictions where we're going to have the registration be, so that people are not turned away who should be people who have their names in the new register?
I think the EC has an answer to this. I believe that for all these weeks, they have been able to put things on paper and they are now going to implement. It's my hope and prayer that what they have in mind will come to pass so that we'll not have confusion at the registration centers. Because take it or leave it, when you get the process wrong, you are going to create all manner of problems. And I don't think the EC is ready for that kind of battles. Let's see what happens, and then we'll take it from there.
Dr. Asante, the considerable issues of timing become important here because we're racing against time. Now, in border areas where we do know people live on the other side of the fence, and really are supposed to be inside at a time when we need them, what should we be doing? And what should be the responsibility of MMDAs that also are within those jurisdictions?
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, those are the practicalities that we have to now pay attention to, because as I said, in a few days, we are going to start the process. And if the process doesn't get off to a good start, normally it signals problems down the line. I know a lot of the operational people at the EC. They have a lot of experience, not just in Ghana, but outside of the jurisdiction. They've worked in very challenging places, in the Sudan, in Nigeria, in other places where, they know how to handle logistics and try to do their best on the ground. But with all of those kinds of preparation, you still need the public support and public education, because often it's just the misunderstanding about the protocols that can create confusion. And that misunderstanding, can happen even for the presiding officer who is supposed to be the EC's representative. So you need to really engage in a mass education, in local language, to let people know what exactly are you supposed to do around these guarantee systems, particularly in the border areas where people might challenge people on their Ghanaianness, right? So what are you supposed to do as somebody, who is trying to get somebody to guarantee for you? I mean, one of the things, and I have to make the point here, that I don't think, nobody can persuade me that a guarantee system is a superior system for guaranteeing whether somebody is a Ghanaian. I mean, you are talking about getting 2 registered voters to guarantee for up to 10 people. So, 2 registered voters can tell you that these 10 people are Ghanaian, and if nobody challenges it, they will be on the register. I think doing that on a mass scale is just problematic, and I don't see how you get a credible register after that. But let me put that on the side. I am focused that this is the law of the land. This is what we have to work with, and we need to get through the registration process in order for us to implement the rest of the calendar. So let's educate Ghanaians. You can always challenge somebody, but if you have to challenge the person, there's a process for challenging. And so this is how you should do it. And that communication has to go out as best during the weekend that is coming. Hopefully, even the churches, can help. The mosque can help, so that people come to get understanding. Even if we start the process, the education must continue, so that people get to understand that these are the ways in which you have to, pursue this process. So that's really for me the main concern.
Yeah, Mr. Dapama, are you still online?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Now that you are a party man, besides you being a practicing lawyer, you then need to augment or complement what the actions of the electoral body should be and the other quasi-judicial quasi-state institutions. What do you think these actions would be?
Now, I am already on the ground, and we've gone through these processes before. The practical difficulties are some of these. One, even where the Electoral Commission officers who conduct the registration, we are now trying to identify those places because we are in the rainy season. Two, the other practical difficulty is that, look, during the NIA registration, a similar formula was adopted for people to guarantee for others. They demanded money. And let nobody tells me that it doesn't happen. It happens. And it will happen again. Three, the EC is adopting a cluster system. And in addition to adopting a cluster system, they are also adopting a pooling system. What that means is that when they come to my electoral area, for instance, in Chanakbe, in the Southern District in Tongo, They are putting all the registration centers at one place. And they are doing so for a limited number of days. So the reality is that when EC says that they are going to register for, say, 40 days, they are actually going to conduct registration in the various registration centers for about 6 days. Then they move to other areas. And that is what a lot of people have not adverted their minds to. So people are not going to have the luxury of looking for a convenient time within a 40-day period to do that, or a 30-day period to do that. They actually have a limited number of days, which is 6 days. And the calendar has just come out. So I think that the EC should review the calendar, because I agree with you that between now and Tuesday, we should run very vigorous campaigns in terms of educating the public as to what to do. And on top of this all, does the EC think that they will be able to observe the protocols, the COVID-19 protocols effectively? It is not merely sufficient to say, I have supplied the PPE. Schools have just reopened. I've just gone around. Some of the schools that government assured that they will supply the protocols and the PPE, the supplies are in a shortfall. So if a school has, for instance, 1,000 students, what has been supplied is about 800. And I know that when you are supplying materials on such a large scale, certainly you may not be able to supply everyone. Is the EC also going to supply the persons who will come to register, or the people who intend to register must bring their own, must wear their own protective? These are some of the matters that should engage our mind. Don't interrogate before Tuesday.
Okay. Dr. Asante, and I'm putting this question to all of you, but I'll come to you first, and then I'll go to Mr. Gary Nimakomafo. There's persons who say, you know, when what we all witnessed over the weekend with the NPP primaries and the fact that in the jubilations and excitement, some people simply, in fact, many people, forgot about the fact that COVID-19 is still with us and didn't appreciate any of the protocols that has been preached that we should observe. And that sense, you know, that gets people a bit worried going into this exercise. Some people will stay away from it no matter what anybody says to them because of what we witnessed over the weekend. Do you get that sense? I mean, is this a conclusion that you also draw as a political scientist?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I think we have to be very worried about the public health risk that we are going to be confronted with. I think just people are going to be indisciplined regardless of, you know, all of the warnings. So in that kind of situation, for me, where I worry the most is the frontline officials, the presiding officers, which is the temporary staff, the Electoral Commission is deploying, the police officers. They also need some very clear protocols how they handle, issues, you know, to try to de-escalate issues rather than, assert a certain high-handedness, which means that they are going to be touching people, and they also forget that they could easily, you know, also get the COVID in the way in which they do the policing. You know, so the National Election Security Task Force really need to, you know, educate its officers on the ground how they're going to handle these situations, because if they don't take care, they themselves are going to be exposed very badly to the COVID, because the community spread is up there. The numbers are rising.
Okay, we're finding it
mostly from.
We're finding it a bit difficult hearing you, but I guess your point is made. Can I get a reaction from you, Dr. Asante? Dr. Kwame Asante? Okay, so we've lost the connection to him. But I do have you, Mr. Mafo.
Yes, Mama V, I think that the concerns of public health raised by Dr. Asante Kojo Asante is very, very genuine and germane. The reason being that, the environment we find ourselves now is not as it used to be. I don't think that gone the days when we used to go and register and people could even converge and have a chat, chit chat, talk to people, will be the same thing now. What I advise is that you should listen to advice of the health experts. You should listen to advice of the EC. You go to the station, you quietly queue, you space yourself. When it gets your turn, you wash your hands. You are there in your mask already.
Mr. Gary Makumafo, I appreciate what you're saying, but we know that's why we even have a law to deal with persons who refuse to wear the mask. Must we have somebody stationed at each polling station ensuring a person whose sole responsibility will be to ensure that people are sticking to the directives?
I agree with you. We have to get that. I mean, the police obviously is going to be there. And don't forget now, there's an executive instrument that enforces the wearing of masks. So the police, I believe, will be at each center to ensure peace, law, and order, and also to ensure that the people who come there at least adhere to the protocols which have been set down.
We didn't see that during the primaries, Mr. Mafo. I guess that's what gets some people worried. We didn't see that during the primaries.
The primaries was not registration. Registration is different from primaries. Primaries, the people went and voted. Now, when they went and voted and their candidate won, you will expect, some jubilation along the line. And I think along the line, they forgot about what we are faced with, the public health issues. But this is registration. Registration, basically, I think it's a quite sublime, issue. I don't foresee jubilation and registration. I don't foresee people going there to go and continue pandemonium, except persons who deliberately decide that for them, they want to go to the station and cause confusion or problem or mayhem at the station, which will be unlawful. And which, if they do that, obviously the law will have to deal with them. But basically, if you go there and you go and queue quietly and you get your turn, you wash your hands and you wipe it, you sanitize it, you give information to the officer, you are wearing your mask, and all that. And when you finish quietly, you move away and go home. I don't see how this can really be a matter of public health if people adhere strictly to the advice and the protocol which has been set down. Because registration clearly is different from voting. Voting, normally, once people vote and their candidates win, you will expect some jubilation along the line. And they may, along the line, even forget that, look, we are in a different season altogether. So this will be different from the voting which happened over the weekend in the MPP.
Do we have Dr. Asante back with us? Do we have a better connection to him? Dr. Asante, I wondered your reaction to this question that I posed, the fear that people have, so that some are predicting, it looks like we still lost him there.
Dr. Kojo Asante, do you think that submissions by a number of people like Mr. Gary Nimakumafo, Mr. Gary Nimakum, about because this is not a time for celebration, a main political party activity or a huge public gathering, then the fear about transmission is well allayed compared to those other events?
No, the last one, I didn't say, no, wait, no, before you come in, I didn't say it's not huge public gathering. I said it's not time for celebration. It is not time for people to, so you will not reasonably expect people to more or less be in a celebration mood. So you will expect reasonably people who can go there and adhere to the protocols. But when it comes to voting itself, which happened over the weekend, and people winning, people losing, those who won, reasonably you will expect that instant jubilation may occur without even they knowing that, well, what we are in now, we are in a pandemic. I think this is a different scenario now. That's the point I'm making. There'll be gathering because there'll be gathering obviously. Yeah.
Dr. Asante, your reaction to that?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's a valid point, but I think generally the way in which people have, complied.
Lost it.
Well, apologies, of course.
Yeah, but again, there's a summary to all that has been. On? Yeah. Please go ahead.
I was making the point that there are even people who don't believe that COVID is real. So we have a real challenge on our hands with our population. And the problem that we want to avoid is that we don't want to overwhelm the health system. And even just getting numbers of people who just even come with mild symptoms and so on just overwhelms the health system. So in a massive process like this, the likelihood that even if you get 0.05% of people, attending the clinics and hospitals, you have a problem on your hands. So we really need, the process is almost 40 days. The clusters are good. So we should just intensify the education. Even when we start the process, we shouldn't forget that we have to still do education, even as the process go daily by. But I agree that this is, the primaries and then later in the voting period, people easily forget that, they are in a COVID context. And I even worry for the politicians, because when you go and somebody is trying to greet you and you are trying to even observe the social distance, the protocols, somebody might even say that you are being too known. You don't respect and all of that. I saw people being carried, on their heads. No wonder that people return with COVID. So there's a real concern that we have to be, pay attention to and educate people, because they are the ones that are going to make the difference between whether we have a massive spread or we're able to contain the disease. Okay. So for me, the public education is the main thing.
Okay. Dr. Mr. Gary Nimakumafo, the Supreme Court, with all due respect, if these are the concerns or the added commentary have post their ruling, they should then have made some considerations, even though it's not within law. This is pure public health, about the dangers that the citizenry or the voter population would find themselves in their ruling.
You see, let's take it this way. In December 7th, there has to be elections. January 7th, 2021, there has to be a swearing-in of a new president or a continuation of the existing norm and new parliamentarians. Now, if there has to be elections, there has to be a voter register, pursuant to which elections will be conducted. Without the voter register, there can be no elections. Without elections, it means that January midnight of 7th, 2021, there will be a constitutional crisis. There will be no president, there will be no parliament. Now we are faced with this crisis. What do? There has to be a decision to make. Registration must be carried out because EC, which is the sole body to conduct registration, tells us that the voter register that they have, they want to do a new one. So what do? We have to now be careful of our own environment, of our own circumstances, and ensure that within the context of what we find ourselves, election can still go on. Can you imagine you wake up January 8th, and then the term of the president had expired, and there's no president, no, January 7th, there's no president, there's no parliament. What do? So it is not an easy thing. This situation that we are faced with, it means that all of us must ensure that we play our role to adhere to the advice that has been given to us.
Okay.
It's very crucial.
Do we still have Mr. Dafamako on the line with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Fortunately, the three of you are all lawyers. I want your take on this. Your take on this next question, and I'm picking this from the consequential orders from yesterday's ruling. where the court says that by these decisions and by virtue of Article 132 of the Constitution, any court in which same or similar action is pending or yet to be filed shall apply the decision rendered by the Supreme Court in these consolidated suits. Mr. Dafamapo, what's your understanding of this?
My understanding is that the Supreme Court is, by this consequential directive, requesting, as it were, all other courts, especially the High Court, where some of these matters are pending, to determine the matter in the manner that they have determined yesterday. And that, for me, is a bother, particularly because it amounts to an interference of the judicial independence. You see, the principle of judicial independence does not simply say that there should not be interference from outside of the judiciary. But where there's an incidence of an internal interference of judicial processes, that also amounts or attacks the doctrine of judicial independence. And it's a big worry. The Supreme Court should have given that such a directive. Let the matters travel in those courts. If an agreed party comes up, which eventually may end up in the Supreme Court, you have an opportunity to deal with it in the manner that you want. In any case, the law already is that, pursuant to the doctrine of stare decisis, decisions of the Supreme Court are binding on all the other lower courts. It's non-negotiable. So, no, I don't think other courts will conduct their cases to detract from what the Supreme Court had decided. Okay,
real quick, Dr. Kojo Asante, with this said, what's your expectation? There's one more case that we know at the High Courts that was filed by Ernest Nogbe, the MP for Ashaman.
No, I think Mr. Dafamapo has already explained that basically what it says is that if there's any pending case, basically the Supreme Court decision is binding. It's a reference point. If on any matter that is similar, they will be guided by the Supreme Court's decision. So it will still be processed, but knowing what the Supreme Court has said, and if the questions that are being asked is similar, then you would expect the same outcomes from the High Court, in that respect. So I don't see any problem. And I think we also have to accept the fact that the Supreme Court had to take a responsible action. There's timelines involved in this process. So you don't want litigations that still come to disrupt a process that we all understand is time-bound.
So Dr. Asante, when it suits them for policy purposes, they can make a certain decision, but there are people who are also...
No, I think these are practice directions, which is proper in terms of ensuring that the court is able to play its role, because you also cannot... I mean, it's the same reason why the Supreme Court has to consolidate the cases that were coming, because there's an effect. Whatever the Supreme Court, whether it's the delay, can completely disrupt the system and create a constitutional crisis. So I think the Supreme Court is very much aware of that. It is within its rules and within its practice and within the processes of the judicial traditions for this to be done. And I think for me, from a public policy perspective, that is the right thing to do. Otherwise, we are actually opening up ourselves for even more very bad effects if we don't discipline the process.
Well, Dr. Gary Dimakumafo,
I by and large agree with the submission of Dr. Kojo Asante. You see, I respectfully disagree with my learned friend Roxanne Dafamapo that the Supreme Court, by giving the consequential order, sought to interfere with the work of the High Court. I disagree with him. You see, how is the Supreme Court interfering with the work of the High Court? But if you stare decisis, So the Supreme Court decides on a matter. It binds on all lower courts, Court of Appeal, High Court, Circuit Court, or whatever you might call it. Now, the court itself, Supreme Court, is a policy court. It's a policy court. And the court will ensure stability in the system. Now, you have a situation whereby litigants might file all sorts of frivolous cases at the High Court to derail the work of the Electoral Commission. While this matter was pending, I was reading another matter at the High Court with an injunction attached to it. And like Doc said, this exercise is time-bound. If he already is late to conduct this exercise, filing all sorts of cases against the EC at the High Court, the system must be sanitized. So the position is that any court with a similar issue before it should be guided by what the Supreme Court has decided.
Essentially, it's useless.
It's a very refined way of ensuring that the system is sanitized. But EC can go ahead and do its work within the time frame to which.
All right. Well said. Well, gentlemen, we thank you for your time. I was just going to say that it's useless now to go to courts with any issue that's close to the what has happened already, because we know the results, the outcome of that. We thank you for joining us. Dr. Kojo Asante, Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement with the CDD. We had two lawyers also joining us. Mr. Gary Nimakumafo right there, thank you for your time. He's a private legal practitioner. Nelson Roxin Dapamapo, who is a member of parliament and also a legal practitioner, also joining us. Apologies, we lost Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, political scientist with the University of Ghana, very early in the conversation. But that's it. We hope that we've actually moved this forward, a bit now, and you have a clearer understanding. I think what is clear from the conversation is the fact that there needs to be a lot more education after this battle. Well, we will be back with a lot more. Stay with us.